I haven't seen this type of energy in a very, very long time. And Jaron Boots Ennis, he brought Philly out. And a lot of fight fans were in the building. So, big shout out to the zone. I worked in the host position on the broadcast matchroom. They really did it up for Jaron. And I've always felt that he was a star in the sport. People have their speculations because of his last couple opponents, and he was criticized. Now, Barak, I'd love to get your take on it. In my opinion, and I said it on the broadcast, that I didn't think the criticism was warranted on his last two outings because of his style. Jaron Boots Ennis is a very skilled fighter, meaning he can use his legs and his jab and stay away and be more defensive, but we won't get those explosive type of knockouts and aggressive performances that people like. So I think that he puts himself in those positions. When you're in the line of fire and you want to score big knockouts, you're going to get hit. Terrence Crawford years ago at 135, he was out boxing people easily. They started complaining. Top-ranked people were whispering about it's not exciting. Then he said, okay, he fought Gamboa. Let me start knocking people out. So he took more risk in the pocket, and you're going to get hit. So I don't think the criticism was warranted even going into this fight, Brock.
I agree with you. Unfortunately, we're dealing with a sport that people watch the sport with expectations, and that's it. Nobody watches basketball and say, I got to see a certain amount of dunks. But even in basketball nowadays, people are saying, I don't like the sport because of these three-pointers. So it is what it is. You're going to come to a fight with an expectation. And when you got a guy like Jaron Boots Ennis that's starching everybody, they're going to expect that. And Chukazan was a good opponent, and that's it. He hurt him, dropped him. For me, that was enough. He dominated that fight and won. That's enough for me. I never said nothing bad about Jaron Ennis after that fight. And he just proved the other night, that he is on that level where he needs to be talked about. Now, I know Eddie's jumping out the window, the best fighter in the world or whatever. That comes with resume, obviously. But that skill set, yes, we can see somebody like him being the best fighter in the world someday.
Yeah, and I said it. Eddie also said that he has cracked that top 10 pound for pound list. I'm sorry, with this unification bout and that level of performance, I'm going to have to agree with that. Now we'll drop our pound for pound list soon, and we'll see if he makes that list. But I'm going to go on the record right now and saying that I do feel he deserves to be on the top 10 pound for pound list.
The problem is that, and that's dope that he's unified and he's absolutely very, very skillful. The problem is that we're in an era where there's a lot of skillful guys. People are arguing about who's number one. That doesn't happen all the time. When Roy Jones was number one, he was number one. When Floyd was number one, he was number one. Nowadays, people are arguing about who's number one because you got Crawford and you got Inoue and you got Usyk, you got all of these guys interchangeable. So that's three right there. It's only 7 left on the top 10. So it's hard to make that nowadays. So I understand what Chris Mannix is saying, who you're knocking off. Gervonta Davis probably wasn't on the top 10 right now. Who knows?
He was on our last top 10.
Okay, well, then maybe him because he got a draw, but it's still tough because he's been dominant his whole career.
Look, I'm not saying it's an easy task to change up that pound for pound list. Obviously, there's probably 20 guys that could be on the top 10 pound for pound list. But I feel like Jaron is skilled enough and is showing enough to, I guess,
and I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying that we got so many dope guys. We got to really fine comb this list and say, all right, who you taking off then? Yeah, everybody's doing so well right now.
No guy would be easy to take off the top 10 pound for pound list. I think let's get into the fight in Stanionis. Now, going into this fight, we know how aggressive Stanionis is. He has a great left hook. His peekaboo style high guard leaves him open to the body. And going into this fight, even for the last couple of years, I said that Jaron Boots Ennis is top 3 in body punching in the entire sport. Because he doesn't only go to the ribs and to the liver. He likes that solar plex uppercut that is very effective in these fights, and he landed that shot, and I saw it even before the fight. Now, Stanionis landed some big shots. Once again, just to touch on the fact that Jaron stays in the pocket in the line of fire because he wants to score knockouts, right? We knew that Stanionis would land some shots, and he landed some shots. But Boots showed that he has a very good chin, but also those shots don't deter him at all, right? A lot of times when a guy gets hit with certain shots, Barak, even if he can take the shot, he starts to think twice, okay, I got to readjust. I don't want to get hit with those shots. Jaron is like, no, all right, I felt your power. I'm going to step on the gas a little bit more and land harder shots to the body and break you down because I want to end this fight before the last bell. And that's what he did. I expected to get hit for him to get hit with shots. He fought another champion. This is a unification bout. What do we think? He was not going to get touched?
Now, first of all, when he was fighting long distance, he was barely getting hit. He
Right.
wasn't getting hit that much. Once he decides that I am going to purposely, on my own, fight on the inside to make this exciting, and not only make this exciting, but hurt you because I feel I can hurt you, you're going to get hit inside. Now, him getting hit with 29 power punches is nothing compared to him hitting and landing 65 power punches. He knew what he was doing in there. Even Gervonta Davis takes shots sometimes inside when he feels like the guy can't punch that hard, and he knows he can get him out of there. So that makes sense. Power punchers do that. So he's going to get hit. What I saw Saturday night was something like Sugar Ray Leonard. Somebody who showed you in one fight that he can box from the outside and make you look silly, play around with you, swing his arm around. He just did spectacular footwork in there, playing around with a top guy who's undefeated and who was a champion. And then I'm going to show you that just like Sugar Ray Leonard, that I'm going to be in the pocket, banging with you,
Right.
beating you to the punch, making you miss even inside and stop you.
I have to agree with that, Barak. That's one of the things that stood out to me, the comfort level. You know what a fighter get in his rhythm, right? And is very comfortable. Generally, you see that when a guy is levels above, whether it's that, a kind of showcase fight or somebody where you know you're supposed to beat, you get real cozy and comfortable in it. He's doing that in a unification bout. Just so comfortable, not worried at all. That confidence level and that performance was outstanding. I don't care about people on social media saying, well, who was Stanionis? If you're a casual fan and you don't know who he is, that's your problem. That was a world champion who was undefeated, and Jaron Boots Ennis made him look average. So, yes, I'll double down on saying that he deserves to be on the pound-for-pound list. I don't know where, but we'll talk about that when we create that list. So what's next for Jaron Boots Ennis, Barak? I know the name that you probably thinking, and that every else.
How you know what I'm thinking?
Well, listen, I'll take a guess. And if we're talking about 147, the welterweight division, there's no other person in that division that I want to see him fight other than Brian Norman Jr. That's it. Now, that, in my opinion, is not a huge fight. I like Jaron Boots Ennis moving up to 154 and fighting guys like Ortiz or Fondora or maybe Errol Spence Jr. down the line if he comes back and get his things going. There are the big money fights and legacy fights at that division. Brian Norman, hell of a fighter. He's a champion. He probably deserves the fight, and I think it'll be a good competitive fight. But I think in terms of business, if I put my manager and promoter hat on, I don't think he should stay at 147 and fight Norman. That's my opinion. I want to see him at 54, Brock.
All right, first of all, there's no such thing as a manager promoter hat because that's breaking the Muhammad Ali Act right there. So you just did something illegal right there. So take that freaking hat off.
Lock me up.
Take that hat off. You're getting fined. Send me $50,000. All right, listen. First of all, Virgil Ortiz doesn't have a belt. I think he's an interim champion. So I say no. That's not the fight next. Not if you're a unified champion right now.
Since when belts dictate who we should fight?
That's a ridiculous question. Almost always.
Not in this era.
Always.
Not in this era.
No. There's a couple of people who don't need belts. And right now, we need belts. Jaron Ennis is a unified champion. Legacy is going up like Crawford did and all these other fighters who move up and go straight to the champion. You don't have to go to the interim if you're a unified champion already. You could probably get the fight with the champion. But right now, you said Sebastian Fondora, he has 2 titles, and one of the interims champions for one of his titles is Crawford. So they deserve that fight first, those 2 guys. And then you got Murtazaliev. He's not a big name neither. So it's either you go up and fight Murtazaliev and possibly win that strap, or a 23-0 guy, or you stay in your weight division and fight Brian Norman if he agrees to fight. Now, I heard what Eddie Hearn said, and it kind of made sense. There's 2 sides to every story, so we got to hear what Brian Norman Jr. has to say first. But according to what they're saying, if they offered him $2 million and he just got paid $150,000 the other day, then damn, man, I'm wondering why you don't take the fight. Take the fight. You know what I'm saying?
Speaking of money, Barak, let's point out the fact that Jaron Boots Ennis said it in a post-fight press conference that he took a pay cut to get the Stanionis
that was beautiful.
fight.
That's what I was getting to. Thanks for cutting me off.
He had to up his opponent's purse so he can get this fight because he wanted to make it happen. He took less money.
That's beautiful. That's what I was getting to. Like, that's what we want to see people do. Make these fights. So in that case, if you did that to get the second belt, why not go for the third and the fourth? Mario Barrios. If you can't fight Norman right now, why don't you try and fight Barrios right now? And then try and come to an agreement with Norman and try to become undisputed if you can beat these guys.
We both agree on it that it was a phenomenal gesture because he cares about big fights. You know, say what you want. You might not know some of the other guys he fought. Doesn't mean that they weren't real credible threats, but he wants to make the big names. Whoever you guys want to see him in, he wants those fights to happen. But look, Jaron Boots Ennis also deserves big paydays, right? He's an exciting fighter and he needs to get paid. So I agree with Eddie. Look, this is prize fighting, right? So
right. Eddie was like, the next fight is more now. He took less now. The next fight is more.
Exactly. He proved to the world, okay, look, you guys want to see me fight another champion? Here's what I did to him after 6 rounds. All right, it's time for me to get paid. No more pay cuts for Boots Ennis. Let's get him in there with big fights. And look, it was a great weekend, Barak. Jaron Boots Ennis, in my opinion, became more of a star in Atlantic City on Saturday night. I'm looking forward to seeing whatever he does next.